Discussion of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Please welcome our panel, Arizona Representative Andy Biggs, Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, former State Representative Vernon Jones, and your moderator, talk radio host Dana Loesch.
Peace. All right, thank y'all.
We are in the gunshine state. It is so good to be with you all here today, and I look forward to this awesome conversation that we're getting ready to have. I have to tell you real quick, 2 years ago this month, I had flown from the Parkland Town Hall to CPAC in DC. And 2 years later, it's really good to be with you all again and talk about continuing protecting our Second Amendment rights. So let's get started on discussing these issues, because there's a lot to go over.
Thank you.
All right, so we had some really good conversation backstage about all of this. I want to start, some of these questions I'm going to ask both of you, we were talking about this, some of them I'm just going to open the field. But I'm going to start first and foremost with, I would say, I don't think for the first time ever, I don't think I'm the biggest fire starter on the stage. It's a really nice feeling. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Boebert. I appreciate it. So my first question's for you. You were granted a concealed carry permit in Washington, D.C. because you fear for your safety, obviously. I mean, God love you, you're the size of a Keebler elf. So diminutive, but don't let her fool you. But you were worried about your safety. Are you worried about your safety in D.C., the Capitol, both? What made you did get the permit, but what drove that decision for you?
Well, I've been an advocate for the Second Amendment for nearly 8 years now. I opened a restaurant in Rifle, Colorado, the only city in America named after a gun. Shortly after we opened our restaurant, there was an altercation where a man was beat to death.
Outside of your restaurant?
I'm sorry?
Outside
of my restaurant. Yeah. Outside of my restaurant, he was beat to death by another man, no weapons, and I immediately wondered, how am I going to protect everyone? How am I going to take care of the people around me? How am I going to take care of myself? I'm a mom, I have 4 boys. How am I going to protect them if there's a threat? And that's when I started looking into Colorado's carry laws. I took advantage of Colorado's open carry, and I began to carry in our restaurant. My waitresses began to carry, and I saw how Democrats want to take that right away from us. You know very well, Beto O'Rourke told all of us what they intend to do. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s and your AK-47s.
He didn't.
No, he did not. No, because I drove down to his presidential rally with my Glock on my hip and told him, hell no, you're not.
All right.
But it's very much, it's a safety issue.
Absolutely.
And, as a female, you've seen the media portrays you as being huge, as tall as Vernon Jones here, who's sitting on your right. But, you're not, and I mean, there's certain statistics that go along with this. To this point, I want to dovetail off of this really quickly, because you and I were talking backstage. Vernon Jones, who represented, state representative for the state of Georgia, 91st district, yes. You supported campus carry. Being that we are in Florida, and Florida has led the way on concealed carry, Florida has led the way on firearm rights. There have been a couple of step backs with red flag laws and the disenfranchisement of rights for 18 to 20-year-old military-aged people who would be in college. You supported campus carry in your state. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, those who come on campuses to perpetrate a crime, they know that they have access to sitting ducks. But if they know they come on campus and they're going to commit a crime, and some of my friends are hanging out with Smith & Wesson, they're going to see something come back at them, and I doubt they'll feel the same. So many women at night are going through campus trying to get to their car to leave or to come on campus. They need to protect themselves. People, period, need to protect themselves. I believe people are law-abiding, like me and all of us here. We want the right to bear arms. My mother was 90 years old. She passed last year. And about 6 months before she passed, she said, hey, Vernon, you have my gun? You have my gun, don't you? I said, yeah, Mom, what are you going to do with the gun? Well, I just want my gun just in case somebody come up in this nursing home. I want to start blowing away. I mean,
Oh, Mama Jones.
So we were really responsible how to handle a gun. So that's nothing new. We have to protect the Second Amendment. I had to command a very large police department. Probably one of the largest in Georgia when I was county executive. I've lost a number of police officers. And I've heard people talk about shootings and killings, and I've seen it on both sides. I've seen officers killed, and I've seen individuals killed. The fact of it is, law-abiding people who want to protect their property and want to protect themselves, they use guns responsibly. But you have some bad actors out there. But we have laws in place. If you're a felon, you can't purchase a gun. Many states have that. And when we see, and one of the problems I have with this legislation with Mark Rubio, I don't know if you get into that later, but it says if you're a domestic terrorist. Well, what's the definition of a domestic terrorist? Does it mean that Vernon Jones, if I go to the United States Capitol and I want to protest peacefully, now I'm under the terrorist watch and I haven't done anything wrong? Wait a minute, that is, something's not right. John Loesch was on a no-fly zone, Congressman John Loesch, many. So what is a terrorist? You and me could be a terrorist in their definition, and that legislation does not define what a terrorist is. And that's a little scary there, because it can happen to all of us.
That is troubling, and this sets up my question, Congressman Andy Biggs, to you. We are in, again, the gunshine state, and this is Senator Marco Rubio's state. He has reintroduced legislation. It is called the Terror Intelligence Improvement Act, and I'm going to read a quote from the bill. It says, the bill would also provide more authority for law enforcement agencies to go after suspected terrorists while safeguarding law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment and due process rights. Well, I've read the bill thoroughly. I've written quite a bit about it, and I've discussed it a lot on air. My concern is the use of lists, Congressman, as evidence. I don't want a terrorist buying a gun, much less, I don't even want them walking out on the street, much less buying a gun. So if we're that worried that we're going to enforce a penalty, why not just indict them? Why not arrest them?
Yeah, I mean, that really gets to the point of what a pre-crime is. So if you say it's somebody who is a suspected terrorist, what do you mean by suspected terrorist? We have definitions of terrorists. By the way, the left, we had committee hearings this week where they basically defined anybody who voted for Donald Trump as a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
So what are we? Are we all suspected terrorists because there is a mindset in the authoritarian left? So you actually, it's kind of a misnomer when they say they're going to protect due process. You cannot protect due process and put somebody on a list and say they're a suspected terrorist, and because they're a suspected terrorist, we have no reasonable articulable suspicion. We don't have any probable cause. Thus, we cannot arrest, we cannot adequately investigate, but we're going to put them on a list. That is a huge hole and a violation of our constitutional rights, both the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment, and that's a real problem here, and those are some of the underlying problems with that bill, and that should be a flusher. We should just be flushing that bill.
And to that point, we don't even know the criteria for even getting on that list. There's been quite a bit written about this. Now, you have a terror watch list and you have a no-fly list, but it's the same. We don't even know the criteria to get on this. And I don't know what the left has on this list, but I'm not a fan of that at all. Now, a couple of other things that I want to get into, because I want to hit the big issues, and I want to get into some personal stories here. One of the things that we were talking about, and this has been in the news because the Biden administration, they promised gun control. Unfortunately, Joe Biden does not have the muscle in Congress to make that happen. I mean, I think what Manchin Toomey went through the Senate by like 53, 54. They didn't have enough when that was happening. They're not going to have enough with some of the legislation that they're trying to propose now. But that's not stopping him from looking at regulatory enactment of gun control. Right. How can they go and abuse the regulatory process? Now, to this point, it's the issue of ghost guns. Now, we all know, how many of you know what a ghost gun is? It's actually a phantom. It's a goblin that will haunt you at night. No, I'm kidding. It's not that at all. It's basically you're 80% lower if you're making a 3D gun at home. They're talking about the serialization of firearms, and the way that the law is right now, it's like 18 U.S.C. 922 or 19 U.S.C. You get a blank, you get one of the 80% lowers, or you make your 3D printed gun. There's still federal regulation that says it has to be detectable if it's polymer, plastic. You have to have a percentage of metal. If you're a hobbyist, you can, with your 80% lower, you can make your own firearm at home, and if you sell it, it has to be serialized. So whoever wants to take this first, we can either go with Congresswoman Boebert or Congressman Biggs or Rep. Jordan as well. We could. This situation with ghost guns, is this going too far? Should Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, should they even have any weigh-in on this issue at all? Should they be defining and trying to redefine what these parts are and aren't as a way to stop hobbyists from a perfectly legal activity?
So if I can just weigh in first, and then you guys can clean up the mess I make of the answer to this question. But I look at it, and what they're doing is creating law where there's no legislative authority. That's what the agency is doing. And so that's strike one right there. Number two, it's a legal activity that you're trying to impose your will, your bureaucratic will. And this is the problem with all of Washington, D.C., is that Congress will punt and lay down so the bureaucrats can go out and do whatever they want. I would say that if we as legislators thought there was a problem, that's where it would originate. We should be doing that. There is no problem right here. This is a manufactured crisis so that the bureaucrats can go over and take over, and it's one more inroad in violation of the God-given right, Second Amendment.
Yeah, no, I would agree. You didn't make a mess of that at all. That was a good answer.
So, Dina, I see this as another hijack of the American language. They are abusing this term, and they're just running amok of it. I mean, we want to be called domestic terrorists and be put on lists and all of these things. Well, then aren't we all domestic terrorists? Haven't we all been called domestic terrorists? My mom is backstage. She was accused of being the bullhorn lady and leading folks in the Capitol. And, we all came to see that wasn't true. Speaker Pelosi has called us the enemy within. There's metal detectors. At the end of the day, this is all about control. DC wants control of everyone's life. And I am there to defend our Second Amendment. This isn't about taking my gun. It's about taking your guns. And I will stand up for your God-given rights every single day.
So I have two big questions here, very big questions. And I'm going to try to stay in our time allotted, but we can talk about this all week. This is a heavy question, and I'm going to hear from all three of you. Do you think that the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act or both should be repealed, yes or no?
No.
Yes, you.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. What'd you say again?
Should the National Firearms Act...
There was a pregnant pause, Vernon. I was like, what?
Can the gentleman please rephrase?
What happened there?
Should the National Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act, be repealed? Should the National Firearms Act be repealed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Congressman?
Yes.
Yes.
I got confused.
Take down those words.
Yeah. I got a little confused. I thought you said, should we take away our guns? I was like a flat. I'm no.
He's already no, you may not have them.
I've been saying no so long when it comes to taking away our rights. I'm just no.
Yeah.
Anyhow, thank you,
The
Dana.
funny thing is, the Republicans are called the party of no, but we're saying no to all of their no's. They don't want you to be able to protect yourself. They don't want you to have freedom of speech. Right. They don't want you to have freedom of religion. In Colorado, they don't want us to have our public lands. They are the party of no. We are saying no. We are saying a big hell no to all of their no's.
So during the Supreme Court hearing to confirm Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who I like very much, there was a lot of hay made over her decision in 7th Circuit, I believe, over Cantor v. Barr. Now, just to put this fast, this issue had to do with whether or not non-violent felons should have their rights restored, their right to Second Amendment. There's been a lot of discussion over this, and it had to do with this man, Robert Cantor. He was selling medical shoe inserts, and he was falsely saying that they were endorsed by Medicare. They weren't, so they got him on felony mail fraud. Well, it's a felony charge, so for the rest of his life, he's a prohibited possessor. And Amy Coney Barrett was arguing in her opinion on the case that that's not historically what the litmus is, whether or not someone is a danger to themselves or is dangerous, period, a danger to other people. That should come into play. I mean, obviously, violent felons are separate, but where it concerns nonviolent felons, the court never said that Robert Cantor was violent. Robert Cantor was never violent, and so a lot of people were trying to smear her over that. That context, now that you have it, my question for you three: do you believe that nonviolent felons, in the context of this discussion with Cantor v. Barr, should have their Second Amendment rights restored?
Let me say this. It's kind of interesting. Republicans are going to have to start taking the lead on a lot of issues that were really created by Democrats.
Amen to that. That's good. It's a great point.
Democrats passed those gun control laws targeting African Americans. That was a way to suppress their votes. Think about this. That was a way to suppress their votes. They become a felon, then they cannot get a gun. It could be anything. Now, I know that's a little deep. Y'all haven't caught up with me yet. Now, all of a sudden, Democrats are going to these legislatures wanting to give people on probation parole the right to vote again. Democrats should say, you guys were the first ones to do it anyhow. We're going to come with the Voter Restoration Act, and we're going to do it in a way that those nonviolent offenders that had nothing to do with being a danger to society, but they were stripped of their voting power. They pay their dues. They're on probation. Why not? Republicans get ahead on that issue because Democrats are dominating that issue, and that is furthering keeping minorities, actually keeping everybody, good white and black people, from voting who want to vote. Why not? And what did voting have to do with being on probation or nonviolent offense? What did it take the voting right away from them for?
Oh,
What did it really have to do
that's a
with?
good question.
It was politics. It was voter suppression.
Congresswoman?
Absolutely. I mean, these are nonviolent crimes that we're talking about, and this is a way just to suppress and control people. But they're not stopping with the Second Amendment. I mean, we mentioned the First Amendment in Washington, D.C. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we start quartering soldiers in the committee hearing rooms. There's plenty in the parking garages at Fort Pelosi. We could bring them on in. And, you know, maybe we could start unreasonably seizing and searching members of Congress. Oh, wait, we're already doing that in the House chambers, right?
Yeah.
We are.
Yes, we are, with the metal detectors and all of that. So it doesn't stop there, and maybe the 19th Amendment is next, and you and I wouldn't have a right to vote.
Yeah, well,
And you can't be called brother or sister. You have to be a sibling.
exactly. Then you'll get in trouble for that on the floor.
Guardian.
Congressman, I'm going to have you weigh in on this because I have one more question for you.
Yeah, so when we talk about restoration of rights, Second Amendment rights for nonviolent felons, that is a no-brainer, and we should be doing that. Our problem is we're in a majoritarian, self-governing body, and we're in the minority. When we were in the majority, we screwed up time and time again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's all right, Chairman. I'm here with you now.
Yeah, I got Lauren with me now. But here's the deal. We can fix that. We just got to get that majority back because the Democrats aren't ever going to do that.
No, they won't.
You got to fix it when you get the majority back.
Last question that I have for the panel here. It's been discussed that the administration is going to have this four-pronged assault on our Second Amendment rights, going after the ghost gun issue, going after magazine capacity, because apparently they never heard the idea, you can just swap a mag, limit it to 10 rounds or under, suing manufacturers as well, and then just banning full-on semi-automatic firearms by conflating them with the term assault weapons. So for you two, and then to Representative Jones as well, Congressman, I'll start with you. What are you going to do in Congress to stop this from going forward legislatively?
Well, so what we have to do is we have to stop, because I think the first two things they're really going to go for, I mean, you've got the ghost legislation, but they're going to go after allowing litigation. They're going to, because they think, oh yes, we think we can get the class action litigation on armament, ammunition manufacturers as well as gun manufacturers. We have got to not just work within the procedures, we've got to throw every speed stick down we possibly can. We have to make sure our colleagues in the Senate are there because they have enough votes to stop that in the Senate. So, so we have to do that. We have to rely on the states raising their voices, governors raising their voices, and we need people like you raising your voices loud and clear, rhetorically fighting. You got to say that every time you say fighting or standing tall. Rhetorically fighting and standing tall. That's how we do that. Yeah. And we can win that issue, those two issues.
Well, first of all, I can't even rhetorically stand tall, so thanks for that one. It turns out gun girls come in two sizes, small and extra small. So. You know, this is, they mention assault rifles in this. I hate that term. I hate it so much. An AR is not an assault rifle, it's an Armalite rifle, period. Assault is a behavior, and a gun is an object. And so anything that they can do to hijack the language, to abuse the terms, to take control is what they're going to do. And I can't wait until we take that gavel from Speaker Pelosi in 2022. Rhetorically. Actually, literally. Representative, you get the last word here.
First of all, I'm tired of you guys beating up on tall people. No, Danny, I'm going to be real brief. The bottom line is all of our constitutional rights are under assault. Right. And we have to fight it at the state level and the federal level. We have to make sure our legislatures are Republicans so we can draw districts to preserve and protect and send the right people to Washington. And so I look at the whole thing. We're all under attack under the First Amendment, Second Amendment, the entire Bill of Rights. And so those framers of the Constitution got it right. That document has survived every document that has been out there. They got it right. And they didn't have an iPad or a laptop or a cell phone. They were smart men that lay the groundwork, and I think all of us want to protect that Constitution, bottom line.
That's right. The Constitution offers extreme protection of our rights, and we need to make sure it stays that way. Panel, thank you all so much. I so appreciate
Thank you all.
Congressman Biggs, Congresswoman Boebert, and Representative Jones. Thank you so much. Thank you all. God bless.